morning and welcome to Morning Break on Breaking Times. And I am Coach They came out where we don't just read the headlines but break it.
My name is Ibukun Barry to the world.
And I am Abbas Muhammad.
Well, we're moving on with politics this morning and we have a bumper story for you. Uh, One of our stories today is Nigerian immigration hikes passport fees amidst economic hardship. IBK is a whole lot to take in because we're all complaining about the economic hardship already, and we're now having passports at 100,000 from 50,000 to 100,000. Mohammed Abbas.
Well, this was a trend last week, when the announcement came from, the immigration office that the price of passport has, skyrocketed, coming just a year or less than a year after the recent increase, in 2024, where people haven't even, recovered from the increment in the price. And this is a shocking development because the people are complaining that the minimum wage is not, up to the amount that it has been increased. I believe it was increased to about 80,000 or so as of last year, but it was not implemented until the sudden increase over to 100,000 and 200,000 for 2 pages and 64 pages. And this is something we wonder how the plan or how this decision came to play, despite looking at the economic situation of the country. So it raises questions as to why this increment, like what is really the reason behind it, because the minimum wage of the country, the economic situation of the country is not like it's improving for the common man. It's not like it's improving for the citizens. So why are we having an increase in this part of the department? Is it that there is no survey into the financial situation of the citizens before these policies are being made for implementing price?
And yeah, Mohammed, to add to that, these are just like the official prices. We know that there are other prices, the other small little prices that you actually have to pay to fast track these processes. And it begs to ask the question that are they taking into cognizance, like he said, the cost of living of the population, how much can the Nigerians afford to pay for these services when the minimum wage cannot even afford to get you a basic passport? Are they trying to trap Nigerians in the country and say, okay, just sit down? The average man and the common man is not being put into consideration when in these policies or increments or whatever that they do.
Yeah, one at the time when inflation is up high and we have unemployment skyrocketing, we have the fuel prices not even stable. And one would just argue that if you are increasing the amounts for the passports from 50,000 up to 100,000 for 32 pages, and look at that's just a list pages that we have, and even for me, I picked up my passports in January for 50,000, about 45 to 50,000, and the little like what Barry said, we have the back doors, but we have the front doors. If you want to wait for it for the 3 weeks, maximum 3 weeks, we wait for in the passport office. That means you have to pay the 100,000. But if you have to fast track your passport, you know exactly what it means in Nigerian setting. But the big issue for me here is actually millions of Nigerians use their passport for several reasons, and you have to have an identification while you're leaving either the airport or leaving the borders of the country. So I would want to ask, at what time do we need to start taxing an ordinary Nigerian to the level whereby they cannot even afford a means of identification, like just the passport, or a means of transportation between the borders? So, Barry, I would just like to ask, if we were to travel today, and you are the Japan syndrome that is actually everywhere in the country, and you are about to travel, can you actually afford the 100,000 naira and with other expenses?
Based on my salary at this point, I think they are trying to, curb the. I think, yeah, like you said, maybe they are trying to curb the whole Japan syndrome because for instance, I'm just a core member. It's 77. It's just 77K per month and everything. So trying to, balance that, it means that someone like me can't afford to can't afford to pay for this and can't afford to leave the country from the premises of this country, no matter what is taking me to. And then, I just glanced back, when I was trying to create my LinkedIn account. To create and, verify your account on LinkedIn, you would need your passport, to actually verify. And then you can't have that. You can't have that. That means they've basically, so for someone like me now, I can't have that, right? I can't have that. I can't verify because I don't have the amount of money to pay to get this passport. It's so sad. It's saddening for the average Nigerian man.
Looking at the figures here, we have about $20 billion coming from the diaspora, those living in the diaspora remittance. And one will be asking, are we taxing the poor to enrich their lights?
It's a very reasonable question because it's seeming now to a point where you might assume leaving the country or having a passport is like it's like a jail term being in Nigerian. It's like being in jail, some might say. And then you are on conditional parole because being able to afford the passport now seems like okay, you have to have a certain class or you have to be in a certain class to have that requirement for you to achieve this. So I think the immigration office needs to reconsider this because the passport situation, like you mentioned, the passport is also used for other purposes, as means of identification, like if you want to verify your LinkedIn account. So I think there should be a subsidization for the purpose you require the passport for. So I think this is something that is very feasible. Yes, in a general term, the economy worldwide, is facing a lot of difficulties and hurdles, not just Nigeria, but in Nigeria now, this is our home country. This is something I think we have to consider. I think they can do something about that. Okay, what you require your passport for might determine how much you pay for it. Not to say that it might not cause issues later, but then there's a system that they could come up with, that will make this a seamless situation.
Yeah, Barry, one I was reading online and I saw some people saying beyond the legality and the Japa syndrome, right? But one might begin to ask, is the government calling this cost effective because they can tax us more? Or is this just a measure to actually put us into more burden? And if I want to get your angle from this, because I'm looking at the day-to-day activities of everyone in this country, the level, this PR at this time, is it a PR disaster?
I think it's a definite disaster because at this point in time, the government is supposed to be strengthening their, the faith of the people in the government, right? Because he plans to run in the 2027 elections for another term, and this is not the point where you get Nigerians to, cry out, as a backlash to these kind of policies, because these policies, it begs the question that is, are they for Are they for the common man? Are they for the average Nigerian? Because does it cater to the needs of the average Nigeria? Does it make life easier for the common man? These are the questions. And when you get the answer to these questions, you find out that the government isn't really playing that part, in the sense of trying to, buy the people's confidence in the government as well. So it's not, basically, obviously, it's not cost effective in that sense.
To commend the Nigerian Immigration Service, recently, within the past year, I believe there has been improvement in their mode of service.
Absolutely.
There have been comments and praises on social media, about how the services has improved with the new administration and all. But then again, it's not like they are free from errors. And I think this is one of the things they should actually have a redo, a recheck, and reconsider to put the interests of the people more at hand and come up with a better.
Yeah, moving on from looking at what the government needs to do to not a kind of what will I say, a tragic development in the country where violence broke out in Niger State, where youths killed a female food vendor after a dispute spiraled out of control. Actually, the lady was killed based on what they call alleged blasphemy. And Mohammed, this is actually coming at a time where we are actually looking at insecurity in the country, the pocket holes everywhere, and now to Niger State. This is actually unfortunate. And yeah, so looking at this story, this is not just about one woman. It speaks largely on the crisis that is actually about youth restiveness and what we will call religious intolerance. But to actually shock you further, this woman is actually a Muslim and was killed by young Muslims. And would you see this trend as actually something that you could actually speak about in the northern region?
Well, I this is a very alarming situation, coming within a short period where we had the previous incident, of, I believe, was it Comfort or her name from the lady from Sokoto,
Yeah,
where she
Deborah.
was also killed, for similar reasons. And this begs the question whereby, we always, preach for people to be educated in a general sense, but then religious education is also something that's very important, because I don't believe these are people who were educated on the topic that took laws into their own hands. And also remember, we have to condemn jungle justice in a general sense here, because this is what was applied before this situation got into where it was. And applying the religion and saying that this is the law, this is the rule from people who assume that that is the truth, really begs the question, like, what do people learn? Do they just assume? Is this a form of venting out of anger or frustration for of certain feelings? Because this is something I believe shouldn't even be the norm. In a situation whereby the country is having a lot of insecurity issues, we are losing lives daily in the hands of heartless bandits and whatnot, fueled by rage and anger of different sorts. And then we're having people taking laws into their hands and adding to the numbers of deaths we're having in the country. These are people who are affected by others' wrongdoing, and then you are creating your own wrongdoing. And also, it's very, and you did mention that she's a Muslim, so this gives you the question that, as Muslims, even safe from the Muslims, you understand, because it's not this Islam is a religion of peace. This is a general with a general knowledge that Islam is a religion of peace. So where are all these violence coming from, that it's even now being tagged as a, like, the religion is a religion of violence? What are other Muslims doing, and what are these Muslims doing differently that is painting the religion in a bad light? Because the issue of blasphemy in Islam, it's noteworthy to say that it has nothing to do with killing.
Yeah.
Anyone accused of blasphemy, accused, not even confirmed of blasphemy, you take them to go through the law, through the Sharia law. In a Muslim-based country, if someone is guilty of that, and that's a Muslim, they also have laws, because what you are doing is that they are being blasphemous either to the Prophet or to God Himself, and God Himself is all forgiving. So they have a chance, to repent. So attaching physical violence or killing or punishment to a person is not actually right. Even if a situation like that should happen, it will be due to recurrence. That particular person is known, because being in religion is like a contract. Yeah, and you are breaching that contract. You are breaching that contract. Okay, you have nothing to do with religion. You are free to go on your own. But then you're coming back and having a direct attack. Yes, there are certain laws that are to stop you from that. And the final is shouldn't even be killing. There are ways you can quarantine or isolate that person. That, okay, you are no longer of religion, so please deceive. It's just like having an issue of defamation. When you defame someone of high status, they'll take you to court, and then there are laws and guides that punishes that person for that particular crime.
Sorry, Mohammed. Under Islamic law, is blasphemy actually, is it the crime for the punishment for blasphemy? Is it death?
No, directly no. There are situations in the past, during the early days, where it has really resulted in that, but then after a long due process, remember I mentioned these are people that probably use it as a form of harm. It's not that they just openly, it's not from just words of just by statement. These are people who have actually taken action, just from what they say. These are people giving, like, let's say, for example, giving position of power, and then they achieve or they go ahead, to do things like blasphemy. And this does not just stop at their words, it does not just affect them themselves, but at the same time it's affecting other people, and then there's a halt to their actions. So in this situation, she's not harming anyone, and in a general sense they are not harming anybody. This is something that affects just them themselves. So whatever does not affect another person, I believe it's not something that you should take care of, because this is a religion where we believe that whoever is not in your religion does not have to live by your rules. Especially in a country like Nigeria, where we are not just Muslim based. This is a democratic country where we have people of different religions, where you have the freedom to practice the religion you wish, as long as you are not encroaching into another person's rights and personal belief.
Yeah, Barry, because this is a very sensitive issue, and but I'll look at it from another perspective. We are looking at youth restiveness, unemployment, the cheapness of human life in Nigeria. And I would ask, do we think that when idle hands meet, this is the resultant effect?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that because you find out that the time frame of which this incident happens, where someone could have actually been in the marketplace or at work, carrying out, this lady was carrying out her own activities, her own business activities when this particular unfortunate event happened to her. So if these hands were busy, doing one thing or the other, of course, even in the Bible it says, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So, like he said, carrying laws to your hands. He said, something about, the measures, meted out on person for taking this kind of actions, and then it's something that it should have been, she was already handed over to the authorities. She was handed over to the security apparatus. And these particular people, decide to, take laws into their own hands. They should have left it for the security, because this has already been taken to court. This has, reached the place where she was supposed to be tried and everything. They were supposed to leave it, but because, their hands were not finding something busy to do, they got, that it begs, the question, for employment, of youths in these regions. Most of the times where we get to hear of these incidences, we hear from a particular part, not to, to be biased. It comes from a particular part of the country. It puts more pressure on northern leaders, to empower their youths, so that their hands don't stay, idle, and then engage in heinous acts, on human lives, because every life is important, every life is sacred, and it should be treated as such. Yes.
Well, report shows that Niger State has some of the highest rates of rural banditry and food insecurity. So even in a small dispute can turn into a deadly affair. And this actually begs to also point out to the fact that community policing is something that we should take seriously, and actually also calling out the security operatives, because the girl was already handed over to the security
Yes.
operatives. And how and when the people actually overwhelmed the security operative, because it comes to ask what exactly is our security architecture like, because I wonder what exactly was in their head, because they must have known that they have little or nothing to defend themselves. I'm talking about the police officers here, because walking into a police station, you need to walk through the perimeter fencing first before you get to the police building itself. So I think we need to actually talk about police reform here, how actually we handle situations before it now escalates to a level whereby they can overwhelm a police station and then drag out the so-called accused person and take her out there to kill. Because we are looking at the IGP to actually have a statement on this, and actually the police commissioner to also come out and tell the public exactly what happened and what went wrong. At what time did the policemen see that they could not control this and they could not call for backup, because I believe that they should be able to call for backup, either a joint task force or something like that, to actually come and relieve them at that point. But we say,
And in addition,
yeah.
this is also an urgent call to religious heads, religious bodies, to actually educate the youth and educate the general public. Because we are used to saying religious heads are mostly useful when it comes to politics to influence the youth in a particular direction. But their influence goes beyond that. These are situations where they can influence and educate the youth properly, condemning acts like this and giving the proper law in Islam that speaks on this sort of acts like blasphemy and stuff, would really educate the youth and hopefully prevent further situations
Okay,
like this.
Incidences like
okay. Moving
this.
on from the
Yes.
violence in Niger State to River State, where Wike commends Tinubu for local government elections despite public outcry. Well, that is an interesting story, because the minister, Yeson Wike, has praised President Tinubu for pushing through the local government election, even though critics say that the polls were anything but credible. And one would ask, because most of the polling units had empty people, it was empty. We had a lot of the electorate at home, but we had in the video where we saw the minister of the FCC actually voting, actually observing his civic rights. And Barry, I wonder what we mean by credible election when we don't have the electorate actually participating.
Yes, I know. According to visuals that we've gotten and information that we've gotten from Rivers State and from that local government, we saw that most of the citizens of that community were at home. Most of the polling units were actually vacant. So, and then we saw videos of the whole thumbprinting, so on, printing several, and then it's begs the question, like, have we really gotten this, process right? Have we gotten this process right? And this apathy, that was that exhibited by citizens, is it justified? Because we see that, they stayed at home. Yes, they stayed at home, and we see that the elections, are being rigged, are being so to speak, allegedly, because he was praising the government for the elections, and then these elections, according to critics, like you said, were actually rigged, and they were not as transparent as one would like them to be. So I think they've proven the voters right, in this sense. They have actually proven the voters right that their votes wouldn't count, because any form of rigging in an election shows that the voice of the masses does not count. You are basically nullifying the voice of the average masses, and it doesn't promote voter what do you call it, participation in any way. It's, if anything, promotes voter apathy. So it's something that the government needs to look into, and rather than clap for ourselves when we know that we're not really in the right, we need to move for electoral reforms and do better in our
Yeah,
elections.
Mohammed, we all know that we've been clamoring for electoral reforms, and local government elections should be something very close to the people. And from time immemorial, we had governors hijack these LG polls. And one will ask, is in the place where we don't have a democratically elected governor who has already been suspended, and we have a caretaker committee, is it actually legal for the caretaker committee to be taking up a local government election, whereas the expiration of the dates for the caretaker committee is just close by? Are we not supposed to be waiting for the governor to come back in seats and proclaim for us to have an election in place? What do you think?
Yes, to give these citizens of River State, or the members, citizens of River State, a fair hearing, give them a democratic fair hearing. It would make more sense, to have had the suspended governor back on seat before these elections were being conducted. The governor of River State was suspended, and the caretaker committee was brought into play. Also, we should not forget the fact that the governor suspended is someone that is on friendly terms with Wike, and the Wike is someone who is an appointee of President Tinubu. So the praise is coming from him would not really justify that they was actually free and fair, because I don't think the people actually came out to vote because you are in a state where you feel your governor was not rightfully suspended and a caretaker committee being brought in. So if your governor is suspended, how would you feel voting for a local government chairman you believe is not going to properly represent you, because you already seen that your voice does not really matter, because that is the picture being painted. We've seen pictures where the whole streets were empty. The people were not actually coming out to vote. So who were these people voting for themselves? Is it just the electorate themselves voting for themselves and then coming back into power? What is it? But I think this is something the president should take into consideration and to review, and also INEC should review. Such things should not happen. INEC is supposed to be an independent body, free from the whole political drama and interest.
Yeah, exactly. Nigerians want accountability, they want transparency, they want actually the votes to be credible. And this begs for many questions, not just photo ops for elections. If Abuja is actually serious, we need to see transparency in practical terms, because we need the local government elections to be like an audit for our electoral reform. And constitutional amendments that stop governors from choking the council autonomy is something we should be pushing for. Going forward, straight to Kaduna, where the former governor Nasri El-Rufai has dropped a bombshell, alleging that the federal government has abandoned the state to its fate, forcing Kaduna to spend its own resources to negotiate with and manage banditry. This is actually a heavy one. Looking at the incidents that have been happening in the northern region for a while, and particularly in Kaduna, which has actually been the ground zero for kidnapping, school abduction, community clashes, and what do you have? I'm looking at what El-Rufai has said just yesterday during the political show, and the one we'll begin to ask is actually Uba Sonny, who is actually the mentee of El-Rufai. Is he taking over from what El-Rufai has been doing, or is El-Rufai calling out the federal government to be a kind of motivator for governors to do this?
Yeah, true. I think this is something we should ask ourselves. Is this something that is new that he's calling on you as a former governor of the state? It's of his best interest, also the interest of the people that he might be speaking of that, okay, this is what is going on, and the people should take note and the federal government should take note because he's blasting the federal. Or is this coming from an angle whereby because he's no longer in the party that's representing the state, so he's criticizing their actions? Has he also done the same thing? I don't know. There probably could be allegations, of this particular fact. He said a lot of things yesterday, and I remember seeing wordings where he said there are actually evidence of him
They know what is
of
happening.
this particular
Well,
accusation
is that
the federal
the
government.
reason
And
why perhaps
and he
you
said they'll
think
be
that,
out, in
there's
due time or in proper
a
time. And I'm
slowdown in
wondering
the
what is
attack on
stopping those
schools and
receipts,
kidnaps
those
that
evidence
we've
from
seen
coming out
in
presently,
Kaduna?
so
Yeah.
that the people will know, because what is going in
There
The
setting
was
whereby
quiet
people
we're
are
seeing
there
in
is
the
scared,
no
Benegwari
we're
there
having a
is no
constitutional
corridor,
slowdown.
security.
Shea,
And
the
will look
earlier
Kaduna,
here.
today,
I was
the
governor
Abuja.
for
National Security
8
Please.
Advisor
years.
also came out
I was
to
governor of Kaduna
debunk
State for
what he
8
said,
years.
alleging
Only
that
3 schools were attacked in 8
their
years.
office also funds
Okay?
the whole banditry thing. So I
This
I
governor
don't
has
know
been around for
for
2 years.
the situation at
3
hand.
schools have been
Hopefully,
attacked.
everybody comes out and says more, and
And they
he
paid the bandits. They
clarifies the
paid
air,
them a
because
billion naira
this
the
is a
first time
strong
the school
allegation,
was
because
attacked and students
we are
abducted.
really fragile. We're in a very fragile
They are
moment
paying
whereby
bandits.
we
They're
don't know who.
apologizing to
Can you
them. They are
verify
Question
this
humble.
who
information
funds
about a
bandits,
billion
and
naira being
what
paid?
is the government doing? We're always hearing,
Look,
okay, certain number of bandits then have been attacked.
let the
We've
governor or
secured victory
anyone
and
come
this and
and
that.
deny.
But then, are we really
We
seeing the
have the
improvement? And
evidence.
then,
When the
for
time
a
comes,
former
we'll
government
reveal
to come out and
everything.
say this.
They are paying
Yeah.
bandits.
Well, but I think
They are empowering
we
bandits.
need to give this whole
This is what this government is
thing
And
a
you
doing.
think that will
context.
not work?
On Saturday there
It
was
will not
supposed to
work.
be
It has never worked anywhere
inauguration of a
in the
committee,
world.
transitioning committee,
Let me
and
ask you today, because perception
that
is
event
a
was
part of life. I
disrupted
mean,
by
how you are perceived and how you are seen may
thugs and
not exactly
violence
be your reality, but
and
the way people
whatnot,
perceive
and
you,
people were
they might.
injured. It was violently disrupted, and I think this is what made him to come out and talk. But then coming from someone who has been a sitting governor in Kaduna State for 8 years, he was governor in Kaduna State for 8 years. I think he doesn't stand the moral ground. What he couldn't do in Kaduna State for 8 years, he really has no right, to criticize a current government, who has just barely been there for how long, like 2 years or so, 3 years. No, not up to 3 years,
No,
just
just
2 years plus
just
and
2 years plus,
everything.
yeah.
So I think he really does not have a moral high ground, whatever way he means to spin it. But yes, violence should not be tolerated. Violence should not be encouraged, and he has the right to speak up against the violence. But all these allegations, and everything, I really do not feel like he has a moral high ground to speak such things.
Well, if what El-Rufai is saying is true, then Abuja counter-terrorism policy is in shambles, because the fact that the governor would be publicly come to say such a thing says that actually being paid to manage bandits shows how normalized insecurity has become. And one would want to ask, who exactly actually managing this paid banditry? Because we live every day in fear. Nigerians actually move from one state to another. We just had what's it called? The former essay to Goodluck Jonathan in person of real mockery, saying that he traveled from Abuja down to Kaduna. But just from what Barry was saying, we had a pocket hole of violence happening at the ADC transition from the SDP to ADC transition committee, and we saw how bandits came in, and actually, I wouldn't want to call them bandits or thugs. We don't know what to label until our security operatives come to label them that this is who they are. But one would want to ask, we in a state where we have a sitting governor and we have a former governor who actually handed over to the sitting governor, and he comes out to say that that insecurity are actually being paid. That's what he said. They are being managed banditry. So one
So
would
is it?
so
Is he trying to say
yeah,
that during his time he did that as well?
yeah, let's not forget. Just a few days ago, ECOWAS came to the headline saying that they're actually going to be raising about 260,000 counterterrorism troops, and this is happening. And El-Rufai is saying this. Are we not seeing everything just actually probably headline and not practical?
Well, this is really a big case. This is a big case. Well, like I said, I believe El-Rufai is not just speaking out of the blues. Like he said, they have evidence, they have proof of what he has proof of what he's saying. and he will release it in due time. So I think we'll just wait for that, and hopefully, what he's saying is true, the government and the security forces, would act on it, and then we'll see a change and improvement. Not that it will just be a thing of debate and then it just dies like that. So I believe we should just
Yeah,
wait.
well, this is a wake-up call because our security crisis is not just a northern problem, but it's a national emergency. And well, let's move quickly to finance at this time. Nigeria has banned the raw shea butter export. Nigeria has banned shea butter export, and we're looking at how best we can actually take this opportunity and actually make use of it. But I'll quickly draw our attention to how this has been going on for a while. I think our raw shea butter produce has been taken out of the country without the country having the full benefits of it. And I want to commend President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for actually putting a peg to these exports, that illegal export that has been going on for a long period of time. And we also want to commend the Niger state government for actually putting up an infrastructure for this. But one, we quickly roll back and ask question: without infrastructure, without stable power supply, how do we tend to actually keep this in check? Are we not actually going to be fueling smuggling, as the case of our fuel and now shea butter?
Well, hopefully that would not be the case, because this is, like you mentioned, it's a very commendable move from the president, because I believe we produce a lot of shea butter and then we export them in its raw form, and we then import finished products, whereby the country is more likely losing money than gaining money from this particular move. So it's very commendable what the president did, and I believe it's something, this is a personal opinion, that this could also be replicated with our crude oil, whereby we mine and then we refine before we sell out there, because I believe this is for the general economy of the country, general benefit of the country. But I think with time there will be an infrastructure, a system where this particular rule is going to benefit Nigerians directly, whereby we do not have to resort into smuggling, this very raw shea butter out of the country. And at the same time, I believe the government should find a way to soften when they make decisions like this, because there are people who largely depend on this particular business, and they have their customers out there. And having a change, this abrupt change, you are telling these particular people that, okay, your income is going to change directly, and we have not really given you how we expect you to survive after it. But with the good infrastructure, I believe there will be a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would disagree with you on that, because basically what the federal government is doing with this policy is to ensure that the people who are exporting get to make more. Because let's take for instance, we're exporting, like the way we had with our crude oil, we export, the raw crude oil, and we don't get much, we get peanuts from it. But if you process it and sell it, in other forms, right? If you process it and sell it on other forms, you get to make more. Like the amount of petroleum, the amount we get to import petroleum is different from the amount we get to sell it. So it's basically giving the average man to make more. And I think it's a kudos to the government, because this is a way of empowering the citizens, local, it also puts pressure on the citizens, to do better, to expand, than the normal, hand, mechanical.
Absolutely.
From the hand this into more mechanized systems, or of processing this shea butter. So I think this is something that I want to not just the shea butter, but to other sectors, other what do you call it, products,
Products, yeah.
spread to other products that we export to as well. No, let us stop exporting raw cocoa. Let us stop exporting, like, let us process it and maximize the profit as a country, and we'll see the turnaround in our economy as well.
Well, many have said this is actually a classic protectionist policy, but for me, I say on paper it seems more local jobs and industrial growth. But history shows that bans without infrastructure will actually fuel black markets. So I would just want to employ the federal government, the state governors who are looking at what the Bago government led government is doing in Niger State, that unless processing plants are in play, are in place, we might actually be seeing more of a smuggling going on from these places where share butter actually, because it could actually backfire. Sure. Because if we don't keep supply stable, yeah. Going on to another story, we're looking at the court order which actually has forfeited a court for orders forfeiture of 246 million shares tied to an ex-army properties MD. Another corruption crackdown. The courts have ordered the final forfeiture of shares worth 250 million, 246 million linked to an ex-MD Army Property Limited. Well, this is just one of a dozen cases because we have a lot of corruption cases, but this is very significant because looking at the amount that actually has left the coffers of the these property, the ex-army property MDs who has actually been involved in this situation. Barry, we are talking about corruption. Our president just went to Brazil and said he has stopped corruption. And now we are seeing this happen. Are we to praise the government or are we to look at more of this coming up?
Uh, I really do not know what to say per se. The government has the government has this meters in which they parameters in which they measure the curbing of corruption, and if by their standards they have corruption, then maybe they have, but then there are these issues, there are these issues that are glaring us right in the face. For instance, this particular case in contact, and it begs the job of the EFCC, Electronic and Financial Crimes Commission. Most times we see them just focusing on Yahoo boys and capturing Yahoo boys and whatnot, and then they leave these politicians, these people in the space of holding public offices, like this military personnel, who was a custodian of these funds, and using it for personal, what do you call it now, investments and whatnot. So I think there need a lot of eye needs to be put on these people. I know they're supposed to be checks and balances, but we don't really see them at play. And yeah, we need to, as a country, as a nation, we need to, put emphasis on this.
So Mo, who actually keeps the checks and balances?
Well, I believe, like you mentioned, the EFCC, the Security Exchange Commission, should have, done their role in due diligence in this particular situation. It's commendable, it has been caught, and then the court has ordered the final forfeiture, and this is going back to the government. We hope that this recovered funds would be properly used, as they have been taken. It's also a call. I know it's let's try to make omelette out of a broken egg. It's also commendable to show that, because I believe these funds, as of when he bought the shares of 246 million, they are presently now at about 5 billion or so in value. And this is a good way to tell the citizens that you should actually buy shares and invest in stocks, because there is actually a profitable return.
That went from 245
to about 5 billion. Yeah, it's really commendable to show that the stock market is somewhere you can actually build with and build yourself as an individual. But then at the same time, we should also ask the question, what is the role of the EFCC? What is the role of Security Exchange Commission? Do they actually have a system to cross-check or fact-check, background, make a background check on these people that invest or buy shares? Because yes, it's good to have people buying shares. It's going to also build the economy, because we're going to have a financial increase economy-wise. We're bringing in money from outside and invest, just the way we buy the government bonds. But then at the same time, what are the background checks we do on people who buy these shares? What do they, what is their source of income? You can't just have someone who claims to be the managing director of FBA, and then he's buying shares of this amount or this number. What is the salary of that person? What other businesses do they have? So yeah.
Well, let's go to another bigger issue under this story. Asset forfeiture is actually a headline, but how much exactly is actually recovered for public good? Because Nigerians want transparency, and on what size actually goes back to the public, but how much actually directly affects those who actually this money was meant to actually ameliorate their either poverty or actually help to actually improve their standard of living or actually improve the cost of living of these people.
Yeah, I think it's left to, the Nigerian Military Properties Limited to, do justice, after, because this is a criminal case already. So how long, are these funds being seized as evidence before they are being, disbursed to the actual people who need these funds? We don't know the processes, but we can only hope, that these funds, are given to the rightful people and are disbursed adequately, and not, so being siphoned by a personal for a personal investment like this was done. So that's the issue at hand.
Yeah. That's much we can take on politics, and we'll be having Barry take us more on entertainment news.
Yeah, entertainment today is it starts on a sad note. Basically, it starts on a sad note. We got to hear over the weekend that, the ex BBNaija housemate Phyna, you know was hospitalized, and following that, the next day her sister on 31st of 31st of August, lost her life in after being, hospitalized for several days. We know the story. She was one of the victims of the Dangote truck Dangote truck accident. And there has been so many stories, so many versions, circulating the internet. I know Nigerians have been clamoring that, let there be an end to this kind of incidences. But first of all, we are going to, take it from the perspective, how do people, manage these incidences, in celebrities manage this, because we saw that, Phyna was hospitalized after following the so
Yes.
many struggles. She has been trying to hustle for her sister to get justice, clamoring for social justice and whatnot. The stress, that it has, on celebrities, the backlash. What do you have to say about that?
I first of all I want to say it's a pity and unfortunate that Fina lost her sister, and but actually we also wanted to draw a little from the feud that has been going on between Fina and the so-called social media activist VDM. Most times celebrities and reality TV show either celebrities or TV show anchors or whatever, they forget that fame does not shield you from tragedy. And when this happens, it actually calls for reflection because VDM was not actually supposed to be in the whole picture. Because what I learned from news that has been going on and from the viral video that went online that what Phyna said, that she never wanted, that the Dangote group never wanted VDM to be in the picture because they wanted a situation whereby everything was resolved between Phyna and the Dangote group, and not between Phyna, VDM, and the Dangote group. So I think we should all know when to draw the line. I think when it comes to our activism or when we try to chase clouds, because most people have come out to call out VDM that he uses most of these incidents to chase clouds. So I only want to say that if VDM was not in the picture, or VDM was in the picture, what we should actually be clamoring for is saving the life of the young lady and not actually the protocol or the illegality or whatever that the story behind whatever that would have held back Dangote from doing. Because I believe that if this child was Dangote's child, I know expressly the first jet out of this country will have been his own private jet. So, but I know that Dangote Group is not Dangote, but I know that he has a lot of influence on the business and activities of the group. So I want to also caution our celebrities, our social media activists, that they should actually have a time to reflect. If I was in Fina's shoes, what would have been my attitude? I think we should reflect more on how we handle these issues, on how we try to strive when it's not really necessary for us to push the strife mode in. Well,
Yes.
Dangote Group has a question for me, and I would just want to ask a question: at what time does this trucks stop killing Nigerians? That is my question to them, because most of them drive. We know how they drive. I actually operate on the road, so and I see how most of these trucks try to cause on unnecessary accidents. So we need to ask ourselves questions: who are actually behind these wheels? Are they licensed drivers, or are we just pushing out for profit?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ikimba. Mohammed, I would like to, ask you a question, as regards to the trending, the trends, VDM, Phyna clash on the whole issue. There are certain concerned, citizens that are like, they really, really would not like to. He has, VDM taking up, social issues and everything. He tries to, center stage the whole issues, and suddenly, divert from the initial topics, because we're talking about getting justice for this girl, Ruth. We're talking about getting justice for her. Getting her flown abroad, for further treatments and everything. We're talking about getting justice for her, and then suddenly it became about disputes between him and Phyna. When is it the right time, to draw the line? Get the social justice, get the end goal first before we settle our individual disputes. So, what do you think about the whole issue?
I think this just paints, looks like Ikemba mentioned. Drawing the line comes at knowing that some people are just social media activists. Yes, he has built his brand, because of the audience he gets from social media, trying to stay relevant on issues. There are so many other cases where VDM could have stepped up as an activist, to try and gain justice. Phyna is a celebrity, and I believe she's someone with a public image that the Dangote group will also not turn a blind eye to and not allow justice to prevail in the whole situation. So I think this is a situation whereby VDM, if he was, truly going for getting justice from the Dangote group and all, he would have allowed everything play out as it's supposed to be and only step in when there is a call, because I don't believe Phyna had called out particularly to VDM to step into the whole situation. When he stepped in, she only came on social media to cry out that, okay, this is what has happened to her sister and how outrageous it is. And I believe the Dangote group would not have kept quiet on the matter and would have made moves already. So him coming out, to step into the whole situation, to escalate it as he usually does. And we know that, yes, in the past, his escalation on certain issues has helped those situations. But then, this is someone already a public face. Phyna is someone with a public face that can, I believe, get that on her own. So I think VDM deserves or owes the public an apology for stepping into the situation and, causing so much chaos and turning it into a whole drama whereby, now that, may her soul rest in peace, Phyna's sister is gone, I believe the matter will now rest from VDM side, because, what he is fighting for has, lost that much outcry that he's been trying to call out for.
Sorry, I need
okay.
to also call out our health sector here, because the federal government has not done enough. Because why must we always fly people out of the country before they get proper health care? Because even our president also flies out to have proper health care. So it begs the question that, at what time does an ordinary Nigeria get the best health care that they need in the country? Because if we had good hospitals that are equipped to actually take up Ruth's case, I don't think there'll be any need for VDM, because that's why I cry out for strong institutions and not strong people. Because if we have the right infrastructures in place, I don't think that we'll be needing a VDM or needing a cloud chaser or needing whatever to actually call out Dangote Group before Ruth gets the best care that she needs.
True.
Okay, without, putting so much, blame on VDM, because VDM actually did his part, in making this particular case public and, try to get the attention of Dangote to other, not just Ruth in particular, for other people who have been victims of this particular, heinous act that, and then we are asking Dangote, a lot has to be done. The Dangote group also released a press statement, sending their condolences, and also Phyna, the Phyna family, through their lawyers have also put out a message saying that, okay, this is basically what has happened, and the funeral arrangements will be communicated shortly. So we grieve with the family of Phyna at this point in time. We do grieve with her. And on that issue that you're talking about, on the healthcare system, we see in the next story where Badi of Lagos goes to Egypt for his surgery, his corrective surgery after public donations. So back to the same issue on ground. Health care, the healthcare in Nigeria, it seems to be very, very poor, in the sense that not just Nigerians who have to, public office holders, even our presidents, get to fly to go for medical checkups, fly out. These are so much monies being spent in other countries, and it begs the question, when do we get it right in our health sector?
Yeah, I think we have so much glorified tourism in this country, whereby we export our people out there for order to exploit them. And I think if our country had the best healthcare facilities, we wouldn't be taking Body of Lagos out to Cairo, because that's actually an African country. Because we were talking about India before, talking about UK, France, but now this is from the street of Lagos to the hospital in Cairo. And we are looking at where we cannot even have Lagos actually, which as we have been telling everyone that the economy is the best. So that means that we had a record of 3.9 million, 3.9 trillion projects being done outside of the slated budget allocation for the whole country. So we are looking at where we have infrastructures, but we have policies, we have a lot of headlines rolling out about good projects going on, but we cannot actually take care of our own citizens in our own country. And it begs to ask again that what exactly is actually being put in these hospitals? Are they just aesthetics for us to look how beautiful they are, or are they actually there for, because we have this brain drain that has been going on for a long time. We have a lot of Japa syndrome taking out our doctors out of the country. So if Body of Lagos actually is on his way to Cairo, that says a lot about what facilities are there in Cairo that are not in Nigeria. So I just want to first of all commend the power of social media, actually, who helped to crowdfund the money that he actually, because now again, it shows that the cost of living in Nigeria is never easy.
Okay, I'm going to pause you on that. You're taking the question right out of my mouth. And I wanted to ask, Mohammed, I've been seeing this trend, in Nigerians supporting Nigerians, here in this instance, we see that good, well-meaning Nigerians contributed a sum of 22 million naira for his surgery, Body of Lagos, and in a TikTok influencer, because he spoke up, and these monies were donated. So basically, what you have to say about Nigerians supporting Nigerians, and how best to use this particular supportive system. We've seen the power in collective goal, collective unity. How else can we maximize this towards the betterment of Nigeria as a whole?
Well, I think this just gives you an insight about how Nigerians' hearts are usually in the right place. We've seen several situations or several instances where people come out and they voice out their problems on social media, and Nigerians do not hesitate and they step up. 22 million naira in this economy is not a small money, and then
not at all.
Yeah, exactly. So generating it swiftly for someone, the people who donated, they probably don't know him and they just knew him from that outcry. This just shows that even those who are not really known out there could also get this help as a community. It doesn't always have to be social media. Every day, we're having people who cannot, foot their health medical bills, whereby I believe Nigerians should not wait until someone comes out to social media. Within your community, within your society, this is the kind of act you can push out there. It's not just something for social media, for trends. It's not just because, okay, this is trendy, okay, let me also donate. The same way, we've seen celebrities also donating. Like I believe even Davido donated about $3 million. They have their own charity foundations and whatnot, and it just shows you that their hearts are in the right places. I believe even within our small communities and larger communities, we can also implement similar.
Okay, so several other donations have been made concerning. On the Twitter spaces, we saw another lady who had another condition been supported, by well-meaning Nigerians with the sum of 7 million naira as well. So that's quite beautiful. We see the whole count funding, but then the issue of transparency comes in,
Well,
come into play. Yeah,
yeah,
I have a
yeah,
question
yeah.
really,
Because when you
because
say
I
it's
saw.
beautiful, actually, it gives me kind of a pinch in the neck because I begin to ask questions like, are we not encouraging or enabling governments to actually,
Take a step back.
yeah, to take a step back while we actually keep doing? Yeah, the government is the people. But where is all the money going to? We have the current ICC being renovated at 39 billion. We have the VP quarters being renovated at 21 billion. We have lots of projects going on, but people are dying. So I would want to ask exactly what exactly is the job of the government to put the people in a living standard whereby they don't need to come online to actually
To
beg before they are being taken care of. Because you look at how much is being raised for these people to have surgery, to have their corrective surgery, or to have their part of their organs, which is actually giving them problems, to be taken out. So now you ask, how much is spent on healthcare for an ordinary citizen to be able to actually live comfortably in Nigeria? Actually, that's actually where, when you say it was beautiful, because I look at it like we're enabling the government and we're asking them to step back from their responsibility.
No,
and we are not taking them into accountability in this trend. That's just my take on that.
Yeah. We actually should not encourage them to step back, but then we need to give credit to who credit is due at some point. Nigerians are amazing people. So even still on that story, we see the issue of transparency, certain sparks here and there. The person in question who is supposed to be flown out for his medical surgery just recently acquired a new phone. He wasn't using this phone before the crowdfund. He wasn't using this phone before the crowdfund, but then funny enough, we see another image of him spotting this brand new phone.
Well, as a content creator, I think he's actually trying to empower himself. So when he comes back to the country, he can continue with his source of living, because you don't expect him to spend all the whole, probably he's learning from our government officials. You don't use all the money that has been budgeted to actually spill into the project itself.
Okay, moving on to our last story for today. We have the news of Cardi B testifying in 24 million naira civil assault trial. And I 2 years ago, a year thereabouts, Cardi B came to Nigeria. She's well accepted, as a pop artist, and as a member of the society, in the sense that Nigerians, gave her names like Cardi Beluchi, like trying to Nigerianize her, based on her attributes, very outspoken, very, very, free. And then we see this play out in court,
Yeah. Yeah,
Cardi B giving witty responses and all that.
When Cardi B sneezes, Nigerians catch cold. The rap queen is back on spotlight, I guess, and she's enjoying the whole trend. And I think that's where she actually flourishes very well. She knows how to actually carry herself around in this. I believe that she needs all the spotlight she can get right now, because
she needs.
Yeah, because in her own industry, this is what actually moves the market for them. There's no bad PR for any person who is in the creative industry or who is in the music industry, because the more you are in the spotlight, the more you have more to gain from it.
Okay, so very quickly, I'll be asking you, Mohammed. This is a quite interesting trial, where, in the sense that she was accused of physical assault by her former by a former security guard. She went to a hospital. At that time she was pregnant. She went to a hospital and she asked that the hospital be clear out, because she wants her privacy. Basically, she gave us. She actually wanted her privacy.
What's going on? What's going on?
She didn't want any camera coverage on her, because during that state of pregnancy, she will come out without her hair done, without her makeup done, and she doesn't really want any bad coverage of her at that particular point. And she told this security person to stop videoing her, and this state security person is coming, years later to slam her $24 million lawsuit, claiming physical assault. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I think when it comes to celebrities, there's always a funny thing when they are going to court, when they are coming to court. It's usually it's entertaining. It's a whole entertainment session on its own because yeah, it's due process being followed. Because tell me why someone who was someone who had been assaulted as far back, I believe the person said in 2018 or so, coming now to try and claim or looking for justice, wanting settlement in sum of about $24 million, and it also begs the question: how much is Cardi B worth herself? Celebrities going to court is always funny. It's always entertaining. You can also look back into the case of Johnny Depp and his ex-wife, Amber Heard, as of about 2 years ago. It was really entertaining, even though yeah, these were serious issues being discussed in court. These were people's lives. It's just a reminder that celebrities are also human beings and they also have to defend themselves. So celebrities going to court will always be funny, will always be entertaining, but then at the same time, we're just happy that there's always just to be method that nobody's above the law. Everybody comes back down to the law.
Imagine Cardi B rolling, doing her famous tongue roll and telling the judge, case dismissed.
It's really funny.
And here we are moving on to the sports segment where we have Muhammad giving us all the details and all the vibes. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today I bring you exciting news, or I have the exciting sports news that have happened over the week. And we'll move on the first one where Morocco wins the African Nations Championship, where they showed dominance, winning their third title, being the country to win 3 titles. Wow. This competition have showcased how African football have gone forward, and we're moving forward, we're developing, unlike the way people see us. So what do you think about this championship? And
I would say North Africa strikes again, because Morocco has clinched their third African trophy, and defeating Madagascar by 3-2. Morocco has been having their dominance in Africa for both in club and country, and the investment and infrastructure has paved up, because you can see that this is they put more money into their grassroots academy, and it's showing that this is actually a good one for them. And I think I would just want to take the message back home, actually, that Nigerians should actually buy into this, because for how long, when will Nigeria learn from Morocco's playbook? That's what I'll be asking, because we have the NFF who look at the international playmakers to come in to do the job for us. But here it is, Morocco has been fielding their grassroots players all in, all out, and they have their club doing well for them. And one will be looking at Nigeria buying the cue from them.
Moving forward, do you think, my brother here, Mohammed, do you think right now with what Morocco have showcased in this tournament, is it safe to say that they're the best group in African football right now?
Well, I think we're about to move into the World Cup qualifiers, so they will defend themselves. They did exceptionally well, in the last World Cup, taking out, a very good country like Portugal in the World Cup championship. So we can't say they are the best so far. Yes, they are good. They are exceptionally good. We'll give them their credit. We'll give them their flowers. But I think alone from the World Cup qualifiers, we'll find that out, and then moving to the World Cup, we'll see if they are the best African team or not.
We hope so.
Africa
in the World Cup qualifiers is fast approaching,
exactly.
And I hope they tend to show themselves after what they displayed in this championship.
I'm wondering, are you a Moroccan?
No. We're all Africans. We're all Africans. We're all Africans. I'm happy for them.
Africa has been exporting a lot of talent.
We have had them. We've had them a lot.
Of, exports from Africa to the European leagues and Asian leagues and thereabout. I think we should all commend the African community for doing so greatly in the world of football.
True.
And because looking at what has been, we're only asking Nigeria to be more consistent, because we actually look at it from where we only look at the international players. We don't look at the grassroots as what we need to grow from the bottom to the top. So that's where we have an issue with, not actually what we have the likes of Mikel, who has done well for us. We have the likes of Chukwueze coming back home, and actually Boniface is there. So, but what we're looking at is how much of the grassroots are we carrying along in the growth of sports. That's what we're looking at.
True.
No, thank you. Moving forward, former Nigerian striker Anthony Uja has announced his retirement from professional football at 24, where he made an emotional announcement via his Instagram handle, citing persistent knee injury as one of the reasons for his retirement. What do you think, Mohammed, about how injury affects their playtime and how injury affects their career? What would you have to say about that?
Previously we've been seeing a lot of issues regarding injury, and yeah, we did discuss that these players, should focus on keeping themselves fit, keeping themselves healthy to avoid injury, because in the world of sports, a little injury, or that we might consider little, is a big deal. We've seen that where Victor Boniface was supposed to be transferred to, I believe it was a Sevilla or AC Milan, and because of the medicals he had to be sent back to his former team and they cancelled the transfer. So it shows that injuries are actually a big deal. It's not like these players are not able to play. It's not like he's going to play. But then he has made that personal decision. At the age of 34, I believe there are players who play longer than that. I believe Ronaldo is older than that, and he's still playing exceptionally well. So I think this is a personal decision. I believe all players should also consider your health is the first thing you should be worried about. If you're having an injury, you feel you cannot take it anymore, you step back. And at the same time, I don't believe it's limiting, because I believe we've had players with injuries, but at the same time, they continue to push through, and they made a great name for themselves in their career.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but for me, I also call upon the player management, because it's actually come because we have footballers who go in with their football age, and we have those who go in with their actual age, because sometimes this healing process, it comes with age, and if you're actually 24, most of the injuries should heal faster and properly. But in the case of Uja, I think he has actually weighed his options and has seen that I cannot put my health in jeopardy going forward. And like Mo said, and one should actually look retrospect and look at, probably he has other things he will be looking at. So probably he cannot be saying he cannot do more sports. Probably he should be doing more golf. And this time was something.
He can even move into coaching.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anthony spending most of his career playing in German league for teams like Werder Bremen and Union Berlin. He has a total goal stats of 113. Do you think he had an exceptional career?
Well, for an Uja who had a hard run, or Yakubu infamous miss, and I think one would say I think Uja had a best of time under the Super Eagles, and of course in the German Bundesliga, and I think he has done his best as a player. And one should actually just say goodbye when it's right to say goodbye. And health is not what one should actually be playing with at this time. Like you rightly said, he can actually venture into coaching and actually impact our young sportsmen, because I'm actually always calling out the grassroots, because that is where we actually must invest more into. And this is the time for Anthony to go into probably grassroots coaching, or look at even outside the country. We had the likes of Finidi George, Olise going into coaching outside of the country, shores of this country. So we don't know what it might be a good spell for him, and actually bring more of his likes to the fore. So let's look at the better side for him.
Mohammed, do you think this is a better opportunity for Nigerian Football Federation to bring in Anthony Uja, an experienced ex-player, so that they can put a positive change to their national team?
True. I think this is something they should look into. It's something very much worth considering, instead of having foreign coaches all the time in our national team. Yeah, instead of we also have this issue of players who play internationally. When they come back home, they do play they do have their country home duties during World Cups and like African competition. They play for the country's team. When they retire, it's not something that we should just discard them. We have always been thinking about finding ways to always appreciate them, or keep them in the light. So yeah, I think having someone like Uja as a coach after the German, someone that is young, vibrant, active, he can bring his experience, from the German league, and as a footballer, an exceptional footballer at that, he can bring his experiences down here. So yeah, I believe the Nigerian Football Federation should consider that and have him here with us.
Nigerian Football Federation, on to you. Uja bid farewell to his teammates, his colleagues, his fans, where he said football is more than a game. For him, it's his passion, it's his lifestyle. So we wish Uja a successful forward life and the other things he looks onto doing. Moving forward, Naomi Osaka slams Jelena Ostapenko's racism rant in US Open. What do you have to say about that, Mr. Iken?
I just feel this is a sports pan tantrum because it goes beyond just calling it a racism route because I see the World Federation might take this serious, but on a personal opinion, I think one should begin to look at the baseline and not the headlines there because Naomi Osaka has fired back at Zelena allegedly racist remarks at the U.S. Open, and one should expect her coaching crew, her team, to actually file in a suit if whatever she claims is right, because it goes beyond the social media rant. Because I saw on our social media page where she gave a slide. But I think we should leave this to the U.S. Open management team to actually look into, because most times what you might think might be the racism call might actually be a personal or emotional frustration from the player.
Mohammed, Ostapenko claims that Townsend was very disrespectful and for what she did, and what she did for not apologizing after what she did, and is against the tennis tradition. Do you think that is enough reason for her to say what she said to her?
Well, I think, there's the spirit of sportsmanship plays a key role here, respecting your fellow player, because what you have done to someone, you should expect that. We've seen that in several sports, whereby good sportsmanship, plays really well. So I think she coming out to defend herself by saying she was provoked into making such a statement, it's it's a 50-50 chance of it's being right and it's not being right, as long as the umpire did not rule it out as a loss or anything. Her personal opinion would not really matter, because we're going by the laws, we're going by the rule here. If the referees, the officials did not see it as a wrong, because I believe they made a ruling that she made the win, due to the nets, and she did not apologize to her opponent. So if she is not apologizing, it's because the officials did themselves, did not rule it out. If they have a personal relationship, that's outside. We've seen situation, an example in sports, football, where players of the same team, when they go to the World Cup, they play for their individual countries, they might clash and face each other. That does not mean they have to apologize. They should not bring any form of enmity between themselves. Even if they were friends outside, they should not bring that to the pitch. Yes, play professionally and then you leave. So in my opinion, since the officials did not rule it out as a wrong play, she herself should not put it on the player like it was the player's call or decision to do that.
Well, I would just say athletes should just play the game and not keep calling out racism or head on. We should allow the authorities to actually wedge into this, because going into this, a lot of things will come into play. She being a black African American, and one will look at it from a different perspective, being who she is, and she has been using her platform to call out for injustice. So I believe that we should allow US Open to take charge of this.
No, bro, I think I would support you. Moving forward, Daniil Medvedev has been fined $42,000 for his unsportsmanlike conduct at the US Open, which this fine was broken down into two reasons. The first one was his unsportsmanlike conduct, where he was fined $30,000 for his behavior towards the chair umpire. And the second one was his racket abuse. When we've seen this kind of case before, racket abuse. He was fined $12,500 for his racket abuse after losing the match. What will you say about his character?
First of all, everyone should understand that tennis is very notorious on strict fining, and when they do this, they are trying to tell you that no matter who you are, that the sports must be respected, and the play also must be respected, because we've seen the case of Djokovic, we see cases of other sportsmen in this tennis game, and actually being fined, and they are made to pay to the letter. So I just believe that every sportsman should actually be able to control his emotions when on the court, because we cannot but actually say that your emotions does not actually be the first thing you should show to the crowd. You should be able to show it. But well, the racket throwing has been a kind of culture of showing frustration. We've seen Rafael Nadal do such, but then on the clay, and I think he got away with some, but subsequently he has seen actually he should not be doing such. But I think this is actually would be from my own side. Wow, 42,500 actually is a lot of money for. I think the world governing body should actually look at it from another perspective. What is fair in fining? I think that's what we should be looking at. But 42,000 actually would not allow anyone to throw the racket next time.
True. There have been arguments from two places whereby Mohammed, some of the fans say it's his passion. He did that due to the passion of the game, and some people are saying it's a disrespect. He did it out of disrespect for the officials and his playmates. Well, what would be your opinion on this?
Sports celebrity and sport athletes need to understand that they are also role models, not just being players of the sport, whichever sport it is. Because I believe all sports have strict regulations when it comes to fining players when they go out of bounds or they go out of line. So I think this is something all players or Medvedev in particular should really consider, that he is a role model. People saying he's just doing it out of passion is actually wrong, because we have to learn to respect each sport, individual sports, and especially tennis in this situation where it happened. We have to learn to respect sports, have to respect the equipment and play fairly and professional.
Moving on to the last part of our sports news, moving into onto English Premier League, Arsenal suffers a drastic loss against Liverpool. What would you like to say, Mr. Ikem? I hope you are not a Liverpool fan, so you know.
Well, we only have one pride of London, which is Chelsea, and I don't think Arsenal plays.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I second your disagreement.
Thank you very much.
It was a heartbreak from Anfield because for me, I felt Arsenal played better. And but actually, who wins the day actually plays best. Liverpool had the maturity and the control of the game, while Arsenal was actually trying to please the fans. That's from my own perspective. But going forward, we should also look at the loss from Grimsby or Man United. You can see that they are winning. One will also think that
not to interrupt you. We shouldn't focus on the past. We should try and stay. We should try and stay recent.
We look at the present.
Man U came out victorious yesterday.
To the Carabao Cup, to winning, they should actually be covering their face in shame, because Arsenal should not be the only one in the news, but actually.
But it's not only Arsenal that lost. We can look at Man City, a team that have dominated the Premier League.
Exactly. I'm saying that the only pride of London is Chelsea. So Arsenal to Liverpool, one should actually expect that Liverpool will win that match, because they have actually shown the dexterity to win. But Arsenal always shows the flair to play. And for one who knows this about Man U actually has been dominating the losses for a long time. And one would say that Nigerian fans are actually happy that Liverpool won and Arsenal lost, because looking at Man U, they are lining up with Arsenal also.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Considering how Chelsea is not, far from us on the table, I would say we should wait and see. The Champions League is coming soon. Chelsea should focus on that. But, that's that on that. And I believe that's all we have on sports. And today on the morning break, I remain Abbas Muhammad.
And I remain Mohammed Kabir.
My name is Iko Kuchidoze Kemba. Stay tuned and wait for us tomorrow again.